Hi and welcome back. It's been a long break. I have been very busy with work and other things during winter. This is the beginning of March, first weekend of March, and I have here the Snowman, my nursery stock larch, which is styled in a windswept fashion to remind in honor or model on the picture, the stormy weather from F.H. Varley, one of the Canadian painters from the group of 7, which itself is modeled on white pine in Georgian Bay. This tree was originally styled this way, but I wasn't too happy with it in that position, in part because of this large wound here. And now last year the year before I put it in this stone, natural stone, and last year I styled it here, and today I will refine further the styling. The tree is still completely dormant. If you can see the buds, they are still all dark brown. Once they become to get shiny, it will be that the tree is starting to wake up. But so far, it's fully in dormancy. So the scope of the work today is to check if the wire is biting in any places, and I can see already some that are, and so I will unwire the tree and then rewire it, prune to maximize ramification and to advance the styling. There are a number of branches that are growing in weird places that maybe were moved by animals or I don't know what, or me moving the tree. So there are a few arrangements of a little bit of pruning to do. Another thing to take notice is the size of these pads. This being a small tree, a pad like this big, is just too big. So I'll probably break down some of these pads, even though the tree will move away to some extent from the original image from Varley, but to become a better quality bonsai, still modeled on it. If I can show you some of the places where I can see the wire biting already. Here, we can see it's biting. Here we can see it's biting. It's okay if it bites as long as it doesn't kill the branch. So this wire stayed all year in the tree. The places where it's biting, if I leave it on for another year, it will be too much, because once this is in leaf, I basically cannot touch it. It's hands off. So what I will do during the year is manage the growth to favor further ramification. This is the large pad that is too big for the size of this tree, so I'll bring one part down and keep one up to make multiple pads. The first step is the unwiring, and the unwiring is the opposite of the wiring. You start from the top or from the bottom, that doesn't matter, but on each branch you start from the thinnest wire and the extremities towards the thicker wire. Now this tree doesn't have any more very thick wire, but it's very important that you use both hands, and you hold one hand to absorb the force of the unwiring of the copper wire so that you don't break anything in between. If you try to do this once the tree is already growing, it will destroy all the buds. Last year, if you see some of the videos of me styling some of the larch, it's sometimes when it's already at the limit of when you can touch them without causing any damage, and still causing some damage, I would say. So I will unwire the entire tree and I'll come back once this is done. Alright, I finished unwiring it all. There are some wiring scars, but not too deep, and that's perfect. Now the idea is to prune and wire one branch at a time. The pruning is important so that you can wire and you don't waste wire on things that you don't need, and you have the space to put the wire where you need. And of course we have to look at the tree anew and conceptualize in which direction we're going. So the idea really is of a windswept tree with the wind coming in this direction and up. So we have these branches towards the diagonal on the top, and we have a few things that don't match. For example, this big branch here coming straight toward us. So we will shorten it and bring it closer here. Now there are a number of considerations that I am keeping in mind as I prune, as I wire. I want each branch to have its own space in the sun. That is to say, I want branches to be photosynthetically efficient. So I don't want top branches covering lower branches. At the same time, I am mindful of the design that is a windswept towards me, and so there is some balance to achieve between spreading branches apart and bringing them towards me. So the design, the sustainability of it, the style of it, and lastly the idea that I want to also keep smaller branches, interior branches, to eventually take over if need, when big branches need to be removed. But there are some areas that I don't need to wire. I can, but I don't really need to. This area here needs to be kept short. This has to be shortened, but at the same time I want to keep ramification. So here I'll shorten here. Here I will shorten here. I will wire this. I'm cutting to a bud always, leaving a little bit of a stub. Sometimes I leave more than one bud. The one disadvantage of working at this time of the year is that the buds are just starting to become shiny, and in some places it's somewhat difficult to determine if some branch died, which happens, or an extension of it is not there, is not going to grow. In a week or two this will be much more clear, so I will be a bit conservative in that respect. Here I will remove this branch going up. Again, I will wire things as needed. When I wire or when I prune, I am trying to leave a alternating pattern, and I'm trying to get either bifurcations or, as in here, terminal bifurcations, as you can see. Or alternating branches. For example, here I have two branches in the same place, this and this, and I will cut the interior one so it doesn't clash with the other branch here, and because of that I can either leave this both as a terminal one or leave only one. Here in this area, I mentioned that this is a very thin trunk tree. Traditionally this would be called a feminine design. I prefer the word gracious or elegant design to be gender independent, and that means that we should strive for multiple but smaller pads. So here as a large pad, here a large pad, here a large pad. These are all to some extent errors. They were not apparent at the time because the tree had much less ramification. Now I will correct this with wiring. Essentially I will break this into multiple pads by lowering one of the branches and keeping the other at the same height. So here, for example, we will have three pads, almost like a step. Here we'll have two. Here maybe we'll have only one. I may cut this extension here. We can cut all the things that will not be used and are growing up or down. But if we are going to, for example, here we have one lateral branch here, and we have one going up. But if we twist a little bit this with wiring, this will be a lateral, and this is going to the outside, which is much better than the other one, which is now lateral, but it's going towards the inside and clashing with the other branch. So this little branch here is lateral, and this is coming up, but this is clashing with the main part of the secondary branch, and this, if it was coming laterally, would contribute to the design. So what I will do with wiring is try to move it a little bit sideways, this branch, and remove this one inside. As you can see here, there is some wiring marks, but it's not too severe. I mentioned that the buds are not very shiny yet, but in some parts there are, and even here there is one here that decided, hello, I'm going to wake up soon. So this tree has about a week to be styled. This is the result of restyling the Snowman, Larix, laricina, larch or tamarack. It's planted in this natural rock. I had to unwire and rewire and prune. The idea is that we have some thick branches here that feel the effect of the snow load, whereas the upper ones feel more the effect of the wind. They are sparser, they are lighter, and so we have this going down and up. There were problems that I mentioned of the previous design, in that some of the pads were too wide for this type of tree, which is an elegant tree, and so I broke down large pads into different pads. So we have one here, and one here, as you can see. This pad, and this pad at different heights and different positions with respect to the viewer. So there is no uniformity. This one I brought down severely to not clash with this one, and I shortened drastically this the side against the wind. As you can see, we still have ramification in these little branches. Here is the separation of the pads. So we have this one, and we have that one in the back. One important thing when rewiring a tree is making sure that you don't fall with a new wire in the same position where you had wired before and you had wire marks. So you see, I'm not going inside the well made the previous bite with the new wire. And now this tree will be let to grow, and I will be pinching the new growth and to foster further ramification. One problem with the larch in refinement, as this one is, why is this tree in refinement? This tree is in refinement because I don't need to regrow the root system. I don't need to make it any branches longer, thicker. I don't need to heal wounds other than this one, which is hidden in the back, but I don't care so much about it. It will heal slower with time. But the idea is that I don't have any developmental goals left with this tree, and therefore I am now in refinement, and with that I need to slow down the fertilization. And larch is a very strong species, so if I fertilize now in the spring heavily, these shoots will grow crazy. It already has enough of energy stored in the root system that was going to be distributed among a lot more buds than there are now because of the pruning that I performed. So already I am in a losing battle against the strong nature of growth of larch, but at the same time I can try to manage it by not fertilizing in the spring, fertilizing only in the fall, and still pinching and transitioning energy and promoting the creation of ramification. Not everywhere I wired, and this is something that reminds me to mention another issue. Work like this takes time. This unwiring and restyling took me maybe 3 hours, and I worked at the end of the day on Friday night, and I'm already tired from work. And then you take very good care of some of the branches, and as you go up you said, you know what, I'll rather prune this one instead of wire it, or I would rather not wire this or this. So in these cases I think it's okay what I have here, but I can see that I didn't wire certain things because in my tired state of mind after several hours I start taking shortcuts. And so with trees that merit a strong focus, it's better that you break the work in more than one session, but not now and then in the end of the summer if it was a species that you can do that. Larch, of course, you have to finish the whole styling before the buds start opening. But in other species, in evergreen conifers, you could think, oh, I'll style half now and half in the fall, and that is very bad, because the parts that are still vigorous will take over, the parts that you're wired may die. For example, here I didn't feel I need to wire this, but this is okay. And so it is okay to break down the work in multiple sessions, but in near each other in time, not months apart. So this is the result of this larch. This larch is, I think, on its 3rd year from nursery stock, as far as I can tell. It was repotted on this natural stone last year, I think, or the year before, I don't remember. And you may say, well, why don't you remember? I don't need to remember. This will stay here probably forever. I may poke holes and remove material and put new substrate, but in other trees in pots, I also don't need to remember. As long as the water is percolating, as long as I feel that the roots are receiving a proper balance of water and oxygen, the longer it stays, the better for the bonsai effect of the constrainment to take place. If you repot every year, or if you keep fiddling with the roots constantly, you are always renewing the vigor of the tree, and we want trees that are healthy but not vigorous in bonsai. This brings me to mind a lecture that I heard from a forestry scientist, mentioning that what kills trees are natural disasters, and their height being too much for the capacity to fight gravity for the column of water to raise. And so if it's not the case, and this is not the case in bonsai trees, of course, bonsai trees can live in principle forever, especially if you renew the roots, but the idea is not to do that constantly. So this is it for now. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, bye bye.